the smell of fresh pick and mix sweets, the creak of polished floorboards under Sunday shoes, the rustle of paper bags filled with treasures that cost only pennies. These weren't just shops, they were part of our daily rhythm, woven into our families, our streets, our childhoods. Today many of those names have vanished, their storefronts long replaced by glass and neon. But if you close your eyes, you can still walk through them. This is the story of 30 iconic UK stores that disappeared forever. Woolworths. For decades, Woolworths wasn't just a shop, it was an institution. You didn't go shopping, you went to Woolies. The moment you stepped inside, it was a feast for the senses. The scent of pick and mix lingered near the entrance, tempting every child with bright rows of sweets. Shelves stacked with vinyl records whispered promises of the latest chart hits. Mothers browsed affordable homeware, while kids pressed coins into the palms of patient cashiers. It was a place where pocket money stretched further than anywhere else. But Woolworths was more than bargains. It was a meeting point, a Saturday ritual, a place where small purchases created big memories. When it collapsed in 2008, the UK lost not just a retailer, but a piece of everyday life. Today, when we unwrap a bag of jelly beans or hear a crackling 7-inch single, we still think of Woolies. Could there ever be another store like it? C&A. C&A wasn't just about clothes, it was about Sunday best. Rows of neatly pressed dresses and affordable suits made it the go-to for families who wanted to look smart without spending a fortune. Mothers would browse the rails while children tugged at sleeves, desperate to escape to the toy section. The store had a distinct smell, fresh fabric mixed with warm air from overhead heaters. For many, their first school coat or winter jumper came from C&A. When the Dutch chain finally closed its UK doors in 2001, it left behind more than empty retail units. It left a gap in family rituals. No more quick stops for a new cardigan before Christmas. No more affordable fashion that everyone trusted. Today, when we slip on a wool jumper, many of us still remember standing in line at C&A, clothes bundled in brown paper bags, warmth against the cold outside. Littlewoods. Before online shopping, there was the Littlewoods catalogue. And before the catalogue, there were the stores, bright, bustling, full of everything from clothes to curtains. Families would wander in not just to buy, but to dream. Children flipped through racks of toys while parents eyed televisions glowing in the electronics section. Littlewoods had a special rhythm. It wasn't rushed like a supermarket. It was deliberate, careful, with staff who knew your name. And even if you didn't buy that day, you'd take the catalogue home, circle your wishes, and hope. Christmas in particular sparkled with Littlewoods magic. Many children's stockings were filled with toys first chosen from its glossy pages. By 2005, the stores were gone, folded into history. But for those who grew up with the Littlewoods way of shopping, the memory of circling toys in the catalogue is as vivid as ever. Do you still remember yours? Debenhams. Debenhams was more than a department store. It was an event. The polished escalators, the smell of perfume drifting from the cosmetics counters, the hushed rustle of carrier bags stamped with its proud logo. For many, it was the backdrop to Christmas shopping trips, complete with dazzling window displays and that one treat in the cafe after a long day. Generations relied on Debenhams for wedding suits, school shoes and birthday dresses. It was aspirational yet accessible, a place where luxury felt within reach. Even the sound of the tills clinking and chiming seemed to promise something special. When Debenhams closed its final stores in 2021, it wasn't just the end of a business. It felt like the lights dimmed on a part of Britain's high street identity. Many of us can still picture ourselves on those escalators, arms heavy with bags, feeling proud and excited. British Home Stores, BHS. For many families, BHS was reliability wrapped in fluorescent lighting. Affordable homewares, children's school uniforms, and the famous cafe where cups of tea came with generous slices of Victoria sponge. BHS wasn't about extravagance, it was about trust. You knew what you'd get, and you knew it wouldn't break the bank. Saturdays often meant a trip through BHS, with kids trying on school blazers while parents browsed bedding sets. And Christmas at BHS had its own magic. Twinkling lights, festive displays, and aisles filled with gifts that felt thoughtful even if they didn't cost a fortune. When it finally disappeared in 2016, after 88 years, it was more than just the loss of a store. It was the end of a family tradition. Even now, some people swear no cafe tastes quite like the one in BHS, a place where a simple cup of tea tasted like comfort itself. Comet. Comet was the smell of new electronics, warm plastic humming screens, and the faint buzz of fluorescent lights. For many families, a trip to Comet meant something big: a first-colour television, a new washing machine, or that shiny VHS player that made Saturday nights feel futuristic. Rows of gadgets gleamed beneath bright strip lights, while staff in smart shirts explained the wonders of stereo sound or the magic of microwave ovens. It wasn't just shopping, it was a window into the future. Children would tap buttons on keyboards, pretending to type while parents calculated monthly payments in hushed tones. Comet represented possibility, that sense of upgrading life one appliance at a time. When the chain collapsed in 2012, it marked the end of an era when electronics felt exciting, even glamorous. Today, when we unbox a new gadget, some of us still remember the thrill of Comet's aisles. Rumbelows. Before every home had a flat screen on the wall, there was Rumbelows, the shop where televisions, video recorders and washing machines were rented rather than bought. For working class families, Rumbelows was a lifeline. You didn't need hundreds of pounds up front. You could bring home the latest technology for a few pounds a week. Walking into a Rumbelows store was like stepping into tomorrow. Rows of glowing TV screens, radios stacked neatly on shelves, and helpful staff who treated every question with patience. For many, their first family TV, the one everyone gathered around on Saturday nights, came from here. By the 1990s, as credit cards and cheaper prices changed the way we shopped, Rumbelows quietly disappeared. But the memory lingers. The sound of static before the picture came on, the excitement of renting something new. For many, it was Rumbelows that brought modern life through the front door. Radio rentals. There was a time when televisions weren't bought, they were rented. And for decades, radio rentals was the name above the door. Families signed contracts, picked out sold-on sets, and waited eagerly for delivery men to carry in a box of magic. Suddenly, living rooms glowed with moving pictures, and life felt transformed. Radio rentals wasn't just about TVs, it was about making modern living possible for ordinary people. Washing machines, video players, even early satellite systems all came through its doors. The logo on the shop front became a symbol of progress. By the 2000s, when buying electronics outright became easier, radio rentals faded away, but the memories remain vivid. Families gathering around the rented TV for the moon landing, children adjusting the aerial during Saturday cartoons. For many, it was radio rentals that brought the outside world into their living rooms, one monthly payment at a time. Toys R Us. The bright jingle still plays in many of our heads. I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid. Walking into Toys R Us felt like stepping into paradise. Endless aisles of bikes, dolls, action figures, GMs, and games stretched out like a dream. Children begged to linger. Parents sighed at the overflowing trolleys, but everyone left with wide eyes. At Christmas, Toys R Us was untouchable. Shiny displays, toy demonstrations, and shelves stacked high with the season's must-haves. It was more than a store. It was a wonderland where birthdays and holidays came to life. When the chain collapsed in 2018, it wasn't just a business failure, it was heartbreak. Generations of children had grown up racing through those aisles. Today, when we order toys online in silence, we can still hear the echoes of excited footsteps running through Toys R Us, chasing joy that felt endless. Maplin. For the tinkerers, the hobbyists, the dreamers of invention, there was Maplin. It wasn't glamorous, but it was essential. Shelves stacked with cables, resistors, circuit boards, and flashing gadgets invited you to imagine what could be built. Teenagers chasing their first stereo system, dads fixing radios in garden sheds, budding engineers buying their first soldering irons, all found their place at Maplin. Walking into a store felt like joining a secret club. The staff spoke in technical language, but with enthusiasm that made you believe you could master it too. From disco lights to door alarms, Maplin had something for everyone. When the company folded in 2018, it felt like a blow to curiosity itself. The high street lost one of its quirkiest, most practical treasures. Even now, when we untangle a cable or fit a battery, some of us still miss that little yellow and black sign glowing with possibility. Quick Save. Quick Save was the shop of no frills but full baskets. Its bright red and white signage meant one thing: bargains. For many families in the 70s, 80s and 90s, it was the place where every pound stretched further. Shelves stacked high with own brand tins, oversized packs of biscuits, and those legendary cheap loaves of bread. The smell of fresh bread and cardboard boxes mixed in the air. It wasn't glamour. The aisles were plain, the lighting harsh, But for working families, quick save meant security, knowing you could feed everyone without breaking the budget. Saturdays often ended with bags full of groceries that barely dented the wallet. By the 2000s, as competition grew, quick save slowly vanished. But the name still brings a smile. For many of us, the memory of paper bags splitting under the weight of bargain beans and bread feels as real as yesterday. Safeway. Safeway was one of those supermarkets that always felt a little more polished. The aisles were wider, the produce fresher, and the adverts promised a shopping experience that felt a cut above. Families would pile trolleys high with weekly groceries, the smell of fresh fruit greeting you at the entrance, and the comforting sight of the bakery section filling the store with warmth. It wasn't just food, it was an occasion. Children clutched sweets at the checkout, while parents carefully stacked boxes of cereal and cartons of milk. Safeway had a way of making ordinary groceries feel just a little special. By 2005, it had been absorbed by Morrison's, and the familiar red and white logo disappeared from high streets and retail parks. But even today, some people still instinctively say, "I'm popping to Safeway," proof that the brand lived deeper than just its shelves. Fine Fare. Fine Fare was a pioneer, one of the first big supermarket chains that taught Britain how to shop differently. In the 1960s and 70s, its bright yellow logo shone across towns, promising everything under one roof. Gone were the days of small corner shops for meat, bread and veg. Fine Fare brought it all together. Walking in meant seeing overflowing fruit displays, chilled counters humming with cheese and butter, and aisles stacked with colourful tins and boxes. For many families, the weekly trip to Fine Fare was the highlight of the weekend. Children begged for chocolate bars at the checkout, while parents filled trolleys with goods that felt modern, abundant and affordable. By the 1980s, as newer supermarkets pushed in, Fine Fare quietly faded. But for those who grew up in that golden era, even a glimpse of the yellow logo today sparks memories of trolleys squeaking through tiled aisles. Gateway. Before it became Summerfield, Gateway was a supermarket chain that many remember fondly. Its green and orange branding stood out on the high street, and inside the store buzzed with life. The produce section smelled of fresh apples and earthy potatoes, while the bakery filled the air with warm rolls. Gateway wasn't just about shopping, it was about convenience and community. Parents would bump into neighbours in the aisles, children sat in squeaky trolleys, and the weekly food shop became as social as it was practical. In the 80s and 90s, Gateway expanded rapidly, but as rebranding swept through the industry, the name slowly disappeared. By 1994, most had turned into Summerfield stores, yet many still call them Gateway in conversation, proof that the memory lingers. For countless families, Gateway was where ordinary days felt secure, because there was always food, always familiarity, always something to take home. Bejam. Before frozen food was everywhere, there was Bejam. Bright blue signage welcomed families into a world of novelty. Freezers stacked with pizzas, ice creams and oven chips that promised modern convenience. For parents, Bejam was a miracle. No more daily trips to the butcher or greengrocer. Now the freezer at home could hold a week's worth of meals. Children loved Bejam too. Choosing lollies and tubs of ice cream felt like picking treasure. The sound of freezer lids sliding open, the icy air rushing out, the misted glass, all part of the ritual. Bejam was more than food, it was the future of how Britain ate. In the late 1980s, Bejam was taken over by Iceland, and the name disappeared. But for those who grew up in the 70s and 80s, Bejam was unforgettable. Every time we hear the crack of a freezer lid, we remember this was where frozen Britain began. Aldous. Aldous was grandeur on the high street. Founded in Croydon in the 19th century, it grew into one of Britain's largest department stores. By the 1980s, Aldous was the place to go for everything. Fashion, furniture, fragrances. The polished counters glistened under chandeliers, and escalators hummed as families explored floor after floor. For many, Christmas meant a trip to Aldous. Glittering decorations hung from ceilings, the toy department buzzed with excitement, and the food hall offered seasonal treats. It wasn't just shopping, it was an event, a day out. When the flagship Croydon store finally closed in 2012, it felt like the end of an era. Aldous had represented elegance for generations. Today, when people talk about a proper department store, Aldous often comes to mind. It was retailer's theatre, a world where even browsing made you feel part of something grand. Owen Owen. With its roots in Liverpool, Owen Owen was a department store chain that carried the charm of local pride. It wasn't as vast as Debenhams or Harrods, but it had a warmth that made customers feel at home. Walking through Owen meant polished wooden counters, polite assistants, and racks of clothes that seemed to cover every season of life. For students, Owen was the place to buy their first smart coat. For families, it was where school uniforms and winter boots were picked out together. There was something unpretentious about it. Solid, dependable, familiar. By the early 2000s, the chain had faded, and its final stores closed. But in Liverpool and beyond, Owen is remembered with affection. It was the kind of store where faces were familiar, where you could take your time and where shopping felt personal, not rushed. House of Fraser closed locations. Though House of Fraser still survives in name, many of its historic stores are gone, leaving behind memories etched into high streets across Britain. Cities like Birmingham, Edinburgh and Hull once had grand buildings flying the House of Fraser flag. Inside, polished marble floors, perfume counters and racks of fashion gave the impression of luxury within reach. House of Fraser was aspirational but never intimidating. Parents saved for a subtle outfit here. Young couples browsed wedding gifts and dreamt about future homes. The stores gave towns a sense of pride. They were more than shops. They were landmarks. When closures swept through in the 2010s, communities mourned. Empty shells replaced once bustling icons, yet many still remember walking through the revolving doors, greeted by the fragrance of new perfume and the quiet hum of escalators. House of Fraser's legacy lives on, even where its stores no longer do. John Menzies. Before I.J. Smith dominated station concourses and high streets, there was John Menzies. Known for books, newspapers and stationery, it was the place where travellers stocked up before train journeys and families browsed for magazines on lazy weekends. The air smelled of fresh print and ink, and the sound of newspapers being folded and stacked filled the background. John Menzies wasn't just about reading material, it was about ritual. Picking up the morning paper, grabbing the latest paperback, or buying school supplies with a parent who reminded you to keep it neat. It made everyday moments feel important. By the late 90s, most John Menzies shops were sold to D.H. Smith, and the name faded from the high street. But for those who remember, the logo still carries weight. It was a store that spoke of curiosity, journeys, and the joy of holding fresh pages in your hands. Lewis's. Lewis's was once a retail giant of the North. Its flagship Liverpool store was legendary, with grand entrances, sweeping staircases, and entire floors dedicated to toys, fashion, and furniture. For many, Lewis's wasn't just a shop, it was the mart of life's milestones. First suits for weddings, first prams for new families, first perfumes gifted on birthdays. Christmas at Lewis's was magic. The grotto became famous, drawing the families from miles around to meet Father Christmas. The smell of pine from decorated trees, the sparkle of lights reflected in polished glass counters. It was an experience wrapped in wonder. By 2010, after years of decline, the last Lewis's store closed. But ask anyone from Liverpool, and they'll tell you. Lewis's wasn't just a department store, it was part of the city's identity. Even now, the memory of its Christmas grotto can still bring a lump to the throat. Blockbuster. Friday night at Blockbuster was a ritual. Families piled into cars, kids buzzing with excitement, parents carrying baskets for sweets and microwave popcorn. The moment you stepped in, you were hit by that distinct smell, a mix of plastic cases and freshly unwrapped sweets. Rows of VHS tapes and later DVDs stretched endlessly, covers glowing under fluorescent lights. Choosing the right film took forever. Children argued over Disney, teenagers reached for horror, parents compromised on comedies. Then came the little thrill of sliding the case from the shelf, praying the tape wasn't already rented out. By the late 2000s, streaming replaced shelves, and Blockbuster vanished. Its last UK stores closed in 2013. Yet even today, some of us miss the ritual, the browsing, the anticipation, the joy of holding a film in your hands. A movie night streamed never feels quite as magical as one chosen at Blockbuster. Virgin Megastore. Walking into a Virgin Megastore was like stepping into music itself. Walls lined with CDs, racks of vinyl, and posters of the latest bands made the air electric. The red and white branding screamed boldness, and the thumping beats playing over the speakers made you want to stay for hours. Teenagers flocked there after school, flipping through rows of albums, headphones on, discovering sounds that would shape their lives. For many, Virgin was the place they bought their first CD, their first poster, their first band t-shirt. It was loud, youthful, unapologetically cool. By the late 2000s, as downloads replaced discs, Virgin megastores closed across the UK. Zavvi briefly took over, but the magic was gone. Still, for anyone who grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, the memory of standing in a Virgin megastore, music blasting, bags heavy with albums, is unforgettable. It wasn't just shopping, it was belonging. Our price. Before iTunes, Spotify, or even Virgin, there was our price. Tucked into high streets across Britain, it was a smaller, more intimate music shop. Its square black and white logo shone above glass doors, inviting customers into aisles packed with cassettes, records, and later CDs. For many teenagers in the 80s and 90s, our price was the first stop after school. The smell of cardboard sleeves and fresh plastic cases filled the air. You'd flip through racks, carefully turning each album, hoping to spot your favourite band's new release. And if you found it, the excitement of peeling off the price sticker at home was unmatched. By the early 2000s, our price was gone, unable to survive the digital tide. But in memories, it remains. The small shop where pocket money became music, where you discovered your sound, your voice, your youth, that was our price. HMV closed locations. HMV may still exist in places, but its high street empire has crumbled. Once, the dog and gramophone logo shone across nearly every city, a beacon for music lovers. Walking in meant endless aisles of CDs, racks of DVDs, and a buzz of energy as customers flicked through shelves. The smell of fresh print from posters and the hum of demo stations filled the air. For many, HMV was where Saturday afternoons disappeared. Friends met up to browse, debate bands, and buy gig tickets. It was more than a store, it was a cultural hub. As online sales and streaming took over, HMV stores closed one by one. The silence left behind felt heavy. Still, when we pass an empty unit where the Rouge pink HMV sign once glowed, we can almost hear the faint echo of music and remember the joy of discovery that lived in those aisles. Zavvi. Zavvi arrived with bright green signage and bold energy, taking over many old Virgin megastore sites. For a brief moment in the late 2000s, it became the new home for music, DVDs, and gaming culture. Shelves stacked with box sets, limited edition posters on the walls, and special offers pulled in crowds of teenagers and collectors. Zavvi wasn't just about shopping, it was about identity. Fans wore their favourite band shirts proudly, gamers grabbed the latest releases at midnight launches, and film buffs left with arms full of discounted DVDs. It felt like a playground for pop culture. But Zavvi's life was short. By 2009, financial struggles and the rise of downloads forced its high street stores to close. Online, the name survives, but the experience doesn't. Those who remember Zavvi shops still recall the buzz, the thrill of walking in and feeling instantly part of a bigger cultural moment. Woolco. Before the rise of supermarkets and retail parks, Woolco was the big box dream. An offshoot of Woolworths, it offered everything under one roof: groceries, clothes, furniture, even records. Walking into Woolco felt like entering a world of plenty. Wide aisles stretched on forever, trolley wheels squeaked, and the smell of fresh bread from the bakery lingered near the entrance. Families spent whole afternoons there. Children drifted toward toy aisles, parents compared prices on washing powder, and the checkout belts were stacked with both necessities and little treats. Though popular in the 60s and 70s, Woolco eventually closed its UK doors by the early 80s, replaced by other supermarkets. But for those who remember, Woolco was unforgettable. It was shopping as adventure, a place where weekends felt bigger, brighter, and full of choice. A store that promised everything, and for a while delivered exactly that. Dixons. Before Currys and PC World took over, Dixons was the high street's electronics haven. Windows gleamed with televisions, radios, and the latest cassette players. Stepping inside meant being greeted by rows of gadgets humming quietly under the lights. For teenagers, it was a wonderland of Walkmans and computer games. For parents, it was the place to invest in the family's first camcorder or hi-fi system. The staff at Dixons were part of the experience, often eager to demonstrate the newest tech, even if half of it looked futuristic and confusing. Saturday trips often ended with someone fiddling with a display keyboard or dreaming of owning the latest stereo stack. By 2006, Dixons stores were rebranded, and the famous orange and black logo disappeared. But for many, Dixons still represents the thrill of a time when technology felt magical, and every trip inside made you feel one step closer to the future. Freeman Hardy Willis. Once a household name in footwear, Freeman Hardy Willis was the place where Britain bought its shoes. From school shoes to Sunday best, its stores fitted generations of feet. The polished counters smelled of fresh leather, and assistants carefully measured each child's size with metal gauges, a ritual remembered by many. The brand's strength was in reliability. Parents trusted its shoes to last, while children often dreaded the stiff new pairs that squeaked through playgrounds. Yet those same shoes became part of family albums, worn at weddings, first days of school, and family portraits. By the 1990s, the chain had closed, unable to keep up with modern competition. But the memory of Freeman Hardy Willis lingers. For many, buying shoes has never felt quite the same since. The care, the ritual, the sense of importance each pair carried. It wasn't just footwear, it was a rite of passage. Mother care. For new parents, mother care was a sanctuary. Its soft pastel aisles brimmed with baby clothes, cots, prams, and all the essentials that made the daunting task of parenthood feel just a little more manageable. The smell of baby powder lingered in the air, and staff often offered gentle guidance that felt reassuring. Generations remember walking through Mother Care's doors with lists in hand, ticking off bottles, blankets, and baby grows. For many, their first pram, their child's first outfit, or even maternity wear for mothers-to-be came from here. But by 2010, Mother Care's UK stores closed, unable to survive changing shopping habits. The loss felt personal. It wasn't just another shop closing. It was the disappearance of a trusted friend at one of life's most tender stages. Which of these vanished stores takes you straight back to your childhood? For many of us, they weren't just shops. They were memories woven into daily life. Saturday afternoons, Christmas rituals, first pay packets spent with the pride. The high street of the 60s, 70s and 80s wasn't only a place, it was a feeling. Could you still imagine living without it today? Share your memories in the comments, not just to talk about the past, but to keep it alive, and subscribe one story at a time.